Original channel reaction, and this is the most terrifying ocean mysteries by channel Wendigoon. Yes, this is a Wendigoon video. Obviously, being Halloween time, and this is terrifying ocean mysteries. This was recommended to me by YouTube. So I'm guessing because I did the Cthulhu OSP video about H.P. Lovecraft, and this is like ocean mysteries. So I guess it aligns. How strong YouTube is getting, right? Because I don't know if did Wendigoon put one of the keywords as like H.P. Lovecraft, because that would be like, okay, that would make sense. But I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have, because it's not about that. It's just about ocean mysteries. So I guess YouTube just realized that and just recommended me that, because YouTube knows I also watched Wendigoon in the past. That is insanely good, man. YouTube is getting really well. So yeah, let's watch it. Wendigoon is great, basically telling stories and things like that. It's mostly bigger videos, like hour or something, sometimes even bigger. So yeah, it's going to be interesting about different ocean mysteries. It's always fun to talk about ocean, not because ocean is fucking terrifying. Obviously when you look at it scientific way, you're not going to see that, but science is a tool to look at it. But when you don't know something, you're going to be terrified. Unknown is the most terrified thing on the planet, and most of the ocean is basically uncharted. So the more we know about deep sea and everything, we just be like, what the fuck, why is that creature like that? It's like, how would one of the worst fish creature you can think of would you put at the deep sea, and that would be the result, what is actually there. That's how insane they are, right? It's just at that pressure, anything, even the metal submarine can get crushed, and these fish are surviving that. It's horrifying looking fish. So yeah, that's what this one. Remember, people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. So I know we start videos react tomorrow, and you can help this channel by helping it to basically get promoted through algorithm or something. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and yeah, that's what it.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel and happy Halloween. And I'll be honest, for Halloween I was kind of struggling to come up with what concept I wanted to do a video on. Because I could talk about like scary movies or demons or whatever, but that's just like me any other day of the year. So I decided for Halloween, why not talk about the one thing that truly deeply terrifies me, and that is the ocean. See, I suffer from immense thalassophobia, and it's not like a specific fear of sharks or water or swimming or anything like that. It is the infinite depths of the ocean itself. There have been countless stories throughout history of the largest grave on Earth taking in people and refusing to give them back. For humans, the majority of our fear revolves around the idea of the fear of the unknown, and the ocean itself has proved to be the one unknowable consequence of this world. There is such...
Hey Wendigoon, you have the phobia. How about you keep it? You don't describe it like that and panic me. Largest grave, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. One of the most unknown, and she's like, yeah, that makes sense too. Okay, now I have the phobia as well. Because it makes sense, right? Because we have this kind of like a letting go of the mentality. You just see, water, I can't see past the water. I don't know how big the ocean is. Fuck it, just move on. But when you really think it, like how scary the fucking ocean is, right? Like it's the largest graves, right? Or ocean can come on the land and basically take you away, right? Because tsunamis and shit, right? Ocean is way too scary, man, right? And I don't know, even if you know how to swim, like on the ground, you're probably going to be fine, but ocean can basically take you away. Ocean is scary when you think about it.
A horrific nature to the fact that it just exists that it's almost mesmerizing. And to prove that today, I'm going to tell a few stories of ocean mysteries that not only terrify me, but I think get across the point of why the ocean itself is so mysterious. At least that's what I'm going to start doing. This may get into a rant of me just talking about krakens and ocean monsters, but we'll see how it goes. And through these stories of ghost ships, sea monsters, and the other unexplainable, I hope that maybe today we can take a look at what is, in my opinion, the scariest thing on Earth. But before we break down all of my deepest, darkest fears, let's talk about something even more horrifying: poor hygiene. And trust me, dudes, I know that as a dude, we like to be disgusting for some reason. And even though it's Halloween, I have come again to tell you about a product that will make your life way less terrifying, and that is today's sponsor, Manscaped. I've talked about it before on this channel, and I'm gonna...
Oh, there we go.
International shipping. Thank you all so much for watching this ad. Thank you so much to Manscaped for sponsoring the video. It really does mean the most. I hope that you enjoyed. Check them out, and we are back to the video. We are going to go ahead and get into it, but as always, thank you for watching. To start out, if I'm making a video about ocean mysteries,
Why the fuck things are lagging? Is the video lagging? Wait a minute. Oh, video is not. Somehow Chrome is going insane.
Then I'd be amiss if I didn't talk about the most famous ghost ship of all of history, the Mary Celeste. Well, you may be asking, what is a ghost ship? And we're going to find out right now. The Mary Celeste was a ship originally built in the 1860s, and this wasn't a small ship either. It was 103 feet long and 25 feet wide. The ship was originally called the Amazon before it was in a wreck and salvaged and reconverted into the Mary Celeste. So if you believe in bad karma and juju, this ship was already off to a bad start. The next year, the ship was bought by a man named Winchester, who hired a captain by the name of Benjamin Spooner Briggs, and no, that was his real name. Captain Briggs was to take the ship on its maiden voyage from New York City to Genoa, Italy. Briggs himself was a seasoned sailor, as you can imagine with a name like that, and handpicked a crew of not only his close friends, but other trained professionals. After stopping in New York, the ship loaded up on 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, or in other words, pretty much ethanol. Like, it's still alcohol, but you wouldn't use it to drink. Captain Briggs also brought his wife and young daughter along, which was a thing that I guess people did back then. So between him, his family, and the crew, there was a total of 10 people aboard the Mary Celeste. And on November 5th, they set sail across the Atlantic to Italy. That was the last time that any of the crew was ever seen again. 8 days after the Mary Celeste set sail, the Di Grazia, which had left from another nearby port, was basically on their track and going to a similar location. It was then on December 4th that the Di Grazia spotted a ship simply floating in the middle of the ocean. This is a weird thing to happen, so the captain of the Di Grazia tried to make contact with the floating ship. Upon coming up to this ship, the captain noticed two really alarming things. For one, the sails seemed to be in a sort of in-between state, as in some of them were furled out and some of them were folded up, kind of implying that it was at a transition period, as well as the much more alarming fact that there was nobody on board, which is probably a bad thing. This ship that had been found completely abandoned was the Mary Celeste. It was found in this state 600 miles off the coast of Gibraltar, which
Well, panic thing is like if it was in between transition, which means between the transition they decided to whatever they were doing, stop it. Like that's something like what happened instantly that they decided to stop whatever they were doing with the sails or whatever, right? Like they stopped in the middle. That means something instantly happened, like immediately something happened. That's like that's spooky shit.
which, while closer to Europe than the original starting point for sure, was still basically the middle of open ocean. The captain of the Di Grazia sent two of his men to go search the Mary Celeste, to which this is the site that they came across. Upon getting on deck, they noticed that several aspects of the ship were in a sort of ruffled condition. To start off, several of the ropes were tied to the sides of the ship, and the ropes themselves dangling over in the water, implying that someone had untied something and quickly tossed the rope into the water behind them. Two of the covers to the lower parts of the ship were wide open. This is traditionally a bad thing to do, especially in long periods, because if there's any rain or dew, it will get down into the lower parts of the ship, as well as a large device that holds the compass and other measurement devices was cracked on its glass and pushed over out of its place, which normally wouldn't be a big deal, but these are massive pieces of metal, and it's not like someone would just pick up a 300-pound block and set it over for no reason. There was also something known as a sounding rod laying on the deck. A sounding rod is basically a makeshift device that's used to determine water depth within a ship. Or in other words, if you feel that there's water within your ship, you can use a sounding rod to see how bad the situation is, and it was just lying there on the floor of the deck. We'll come back to that one later. Perhaps most notably, one of the lifeboats was missing. Not only that, but the rope that was in the place of where the lifeboat would have been located was not untied, but cut. See, when you're out in the middle of the ocean, and especially as a sailor, you've only got a limited amount of rope, so you wouldn't cut it unless you were in a really big hurry. Upon further investigation in the ship, within the found the captain's log.
I mean, we determined that it was like they were in a fucking hurry because they stopped the sail in midway. But the thing about the big metal thing, falling, I don't know, couldn't it be some kind of like a collision damage of any kind, or just like malfunction of any kind? I don't know. I mean, they would have when they install it, they would have made sure that it doesn't fall out just because you make evasive maneuvers or something. So it must have been either something might have just hit it really hard, but if that's the case, then hull would have damage and shit like that. So how did it fall over?
hurry. Upon further investigation in the ship, within the cabin they found the captain's log. Captain Briggs logged everything from the hour, so there was a very intense and descriptive description of everything that happened within the boat up until 8 a.m. on November 25th. Because of this, we can safely assume that whatever happened to the Mary Celeste happened between 8 and 9 a.m. on November 25th. That would mean that this event occurred 9 days before its discovery. And given the coordinates that the captain logged,
Or maybe captain doesn't write things every hour, but he just like binge write it at a certain point, hour by hour basis. I mean, that could happen. I mean, it would be really weird if he just like did that every few minutes, every hour or something. Like that has to be really punctual.
at 8 a.m. on November 25th, that would also place it 400 miles away from wherever this thing happened. And one of the strangest things of this entire mystery is absolutely everything was in its place. Everyone's personal supplies, all of the food rations, and the alcohol barrels were all in their respectable locations as if nothing had happened. The only thing that could not be found was the captain's personal navigation equipment. In the very bottom hold of the ship, there was about 3.5 feet of water. Now you may be thinking that that sounds like a really bad thing and the ship is sinking. That's actually a pretty normal amount. See, back when boats were made of, like wood, they weren't exactly sealed up all the time, and it wasn't uncommon for water to seep in. Also, the deck itself wasn't exactly airtight either, so if there was something like rain, all of that rain would go down into the bottom of the boat. There were pumps in place in order to get water out of the bottom whenever that happened, and the 3.5 feet indicate that the water hadn't been pumped for some time. That's the purpose of the sounding rod I meant earlier, because you could eyeball the water in the bottom of the boat, and it's a very thin line between, we need to pump it and everyone needs to leave right now. The DeGradia, which is the ship that found the Mary Celeste, decided to bring it into port in order to get the salvage earnings. See, the way it used to work is if you found salvage or some sunken treasure or something along that line, and you were to bring it into port and sell it back to either a state government or a private ownership or whatever, whoever bought the supplies would pay you a handsome finder's fee for recovering the wreckage. So the captain of the DeGradia, seeing a literal empty floating ship full of potential money, decided to bring it into port. However, because he was trying to get money for it, there was a sort of trial held to determine if the ship was gained by moral means. Basically confirming that the captain wasn't trying to commit some elaborate form of insurance fraud. Overseeing this trial was a man by the name of Attorney General Flood. And I have to mention this because it's too
I guess it would make sense if it's like some old ship or something like that, but it's like ongoing thing. Like they're literally missing and he just finds out. So of course people are going to raise like eyebrows. Like, is his insurance fraud? Or did he do some nefarious shit or something? I don't know. That would make sense.
too funny not to. In research for this, there was one historian who said, and I quote, "He was a man whose arrogance and pomposity were inversely proportional to his IQ." Pomposity. That is a fantastic word. I'm keeping it. During the course of this trial, they went through a whole slew of different theories of what happened to the crew of the ship. See, the most crucial piece of evidence, and really the only piece of evidence that anyone has, is the fact that one of the lifeboat tethers was cut, implying that with whatever happened, someone had an opportunity to try to get away. Not only that, but it had to be a pretty desperate situation if they cut the ropes in order to get off in what's pretty much the middle of the ocean. One of the initial theories that got tossed around was the idea of a giant storm that came through and wrecked the ship to a point that they thought it was sinking and everyone left. And remember, there were more lifeboats, so the idea that everyone hopped on one and hurriedly cut it implied that they thought something was happening right away, or the winds of the storm were threatening to capsize the boat. However, an investigator who was sent to look at the ship found several open vials of both ink and oil setting up on tables, which, as you could imagine, if it was a massive storm that was threatening to sink the boat and the waves were tossing it around, those vials wouldn't just be sitting there upright, not having been spilt. And also, all of the alcohol barrels and personal belongings would be all over the place if that was the case. But like I said, everything was in perfect order.
I would think pirates, right? Pirates basically, try to basically attack them and they just panicked. Maybe they already boarded them and people just like panic in midway. I mean, that would be the rational thing, I guess. And pirates just took all of them. I don't know.
That Attorney General Flood that I mentioned earlier, really had some dumb ideas about this. He was convinced that there was foul play involved in some way just for eventually this new captain to bring the boat in for insurance fraud, or technically salvage
Always
fraud, but
blame
pretty
the
much same thing. But this captain
It's like every movie's stupid guy, right? Not antagonist, but some stupid guy who's like, you were there, so you must be at fault. I'm not gonna even try to make sense of this shit. You both together, that's it. That's all I need.
is a seasoned captain who's been working for years and makes good money. And Captain Briggs was also a seasoned captain who was making good money doing what he's doing. So it doesn't make sense for them to ruin their whole careers and livelihoods just to make a quick buck. That didn't stop the Attorney General from getting some weird evidence. Like, for example, there was a sheathed sword found underneath Captain Briggs's bed. While which, inspecting the sword, there was something that he said could have been blood. As well as on the deck of the ship, there was other stuff that he said could have been blood. And if it sounds like I'm being vague,
Is this wine? No, that could have been blood. Is this rust met with water just looks like blood? No, this is definitely blood.
vague with those descriptions, that's because he was also being vague with those descriptions. His theory was that the crew members got really, really drunk, killed the captain and his family, and then took the one lifeboat and just paddled out to sea. Now, this doesn't make sense for a lot of reasons. For one of his points of evidence was that whenever those two men I mentioned earlier, the first ones
panic.
who got on board the Mary Celeste, whenever those two guys went down beneath deck, they said they could smell alcohol, because if you'll remember, the ship was shipping alcohol. However, this Attorney General took that to mean that the guys were drunk. And I guess totally just ignored the over 1,000 barrels of ethanol that were stored in the ship, even though there are absolutely no signs of a struggle or a murder or anything of the like. This Attorney General was so adamant about this theory.
If anything, there's like signs of panic, right? And if the panic is not just panic of running away, panic of stopping whatever you're doing, like stopping the sail midway. So something happened to those people. If some people is mutiny try to kill the captain, there wouldn't be panic. It would be somewhat like in controlled. Captain would be panic. I understand captain and his family trying to run away from the lifeboat or something. But what about the sails, right? So that doesn't make sense to me. And all the things just being there, just left there, right? Just some things are missing, but otherwise just all there. Just like, why would they? If they're gonna run away, why would they not take most shit they can take with them?
That whenever the owner of the ship, Winchester, came over to Europe in order to, get his ship back, the Attorney General immediately began accusing him of how he would be so evil as to allow such a crew of rapscallions to kill a good captain and his family. To which I imagine Winchester was like, what? And the two got into several heated arguments in court over this before it was eventually decided that no one had any idea what happened to the ship. Also, remember the whole blood on the sword thing and blood?
I can imagine just saying to the Attorney General, whatever guy, like, what? You gonna blame me? Right? Do you even know anything about sailing? Do you even live, brah? What you talking about?
Blood on the deck thing. Someone analyzed that and it wasn't blood, it was like rust and dirt. And by the time the trial was over, the Attorney General paid the captain of the
fucking said
Claudia
that.
like a third of what it should have been, because the Attorney General was still poopy that, they didn't stab each other and it was like a bloody fight or whatever. But that doesn't answer the question.
Yeah, you have no idea how strong basically a rust mixed with water would look a basically maroon red color. And with bad lighting can easily be mistaken for blood, but it's a fucking rust.
Of what happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste. Well, there were several people who still believed the insurance scam story, or the idea that Briggs had put this whole thing together in order to get money off the ship, but again, it was way, way less than he was making as a captain anyway. And also, that still doesn't change the idea that why would he take not only his crew but his wife and young daughter out to open ocean in order to make a few bucks. Another popular theory at the time was pirates, because pirates were in fact a problem in the 1800s. However, as I mentioned earlier, there was no signs of a struggle or anything likewise, and also if it was pirates, it would be weird for pirates to kidnap people, not take anything on the ship, including one of the 1,000 barrels of alcohol, and then never hold any of that crew they kidnapped for ransom.
If one thing I learned from playing Black Flag is that resources is what that matter to the pirates. They would have taken the fucking alcohol, like at least some of it, if not all of it. It's not just about money, it's about resources as well. Alcohol works, right? So yeah, it can't be pirate if that's the case.
Because, pirates are in it for the money and the gold and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
for them
it's
to
a
just
business for
kidnap
them.
people and then seemingly not do anything with them doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, that doesn't explain the lifeboat thing. People are
Yeah.
still so questioning over this whole story that there was one theory that a historian did in the 20s where he said that perhaps because Captain Briggs was religious, he decided to become a fanatic and murdered everyone, threw them overboard before committing suicide and somehow not leaving any trace of this. I should also mention that historian apologized to the family after he did it because, yeah, that may be a little And that's coming from the guy who's
Little.
about to say the Kraken did it. Two of the more
Yeah, little, really? That's not little. Like, claiming some shit like that, it's like really strong, especially to the family. You can't, why would you go around making that fucking claim? Oh, I'm nothing. I'm just gonna say this. Why the fuck not? Why? First of all, why would he go all the way there? If he's just gonna do that, he would just do that close to wherever he says sail off. Like, does he need the boat to do that? Right? And it's just like, I don't know. He could do the many other reasons. Like, why would he have shipment of ethanol while he's doing this? Right? I don't know. And what? No evidence of body, none. If he did suicide, what is like leaning towards the water? Is just like, I need to die when I fall in water. Is that what's happening? I don't know. And what about the some kind of evidence of poison or something? I don't know. Way too many things are missing there. So yeah, that was a wild theory. Of course, family's gonna get out. Like, you can just call it like he just did some kind of a religious type of thing, right? Cult type of thing. Of course, they're gonna be hurt, and there is no evidence of it, as far as I can think.
more popular theories was that it was either a water spout or a sea quake. In other words, like a small tornado on the ocean
Again,
or an
inks, man.
earthquake, because that may cause enough turbulence and enough water being thrown around that the ship may begin to sink. However, if it was something like a water spout that was big enough that it threatened to sink the ship, there would have been, for one, a lot more water in the bottom of the ship, and also everything wouldn't have been as neatly packed as it was. And the same thing can be said about the sea quake. If it was an earthquake that this seasoned captain and his entire seasoned crew thought was at risk of drowning them all, then why was everything in such a perfect condition? Also, the whole lifeboat thing doesn't make sense for either of those.
What the fuck is happening to the camera?
Like, sure, that may make sense for why they were in such a hurry and everyone piled into one and cut the ropes, but if you're in a tornado and, like, as a seasoned captain, you're not going to be like, quick, everyone get onto the much smaller boat in the middle of the ocean. Don't get your stuff, there's no time. One theory that I think holds more weight than most of them is that of the explosion. See, denatured alcohol or ethanol has a problem with producing vapors that have a tendency to blow up. And in the captain's log that I mentioned earlier, he had mentioned throughout the trip that they just heard random explosions coming from beneath the deck, because I guess that's just a thing that happens. So perhaps one day there was a rather large explosion.
Hey, we are transporting ethanol, the barrels of it, strong ethanol, extremely flammable. By the way, we heard some explosion. Everything's gonna be fine. If we are on sea, no island or nothing, we are all gonna be fine. Yeah, I don't understand how people basically set foot on a fucking boat during that time. I wouldn't have. Whatever land I'm on, like, yeah, this is where I'm gonna spend my life, regardless of what. There is no boat. Fuck that.
And that may explain why both of the lower deck doors were open whenever the two men came on board, implying that they were trying to air out the bottom cargo hold. And in 2005, the Channel 5 broadcasting station actually recreated this theory, and it turns out that even if there is a very large vapor explosion and a very large fireball, it wouldn't destroy any of the interior. That was the issue everyone had with the explosion theory, because whenever they walked into the bottom deck, everything was fine, and you could probably tell if it, blew up. But these vapor explosions are just a quick fireball, and there's no lasting damage.
I guess it would make sense if it's like, basically condensed there, right? If explosion happens and, obviously open air outside, the explosion would basically push outside as fast as it could before doing damage inside. So I guess it can make sense that way, but I don't know. I think the wooden boat, I think there would be some sign of an explosion. There would be some charred things here and there. I don't know that. I don't see that.
However, as I mentioned, the captain had logged in his book that this had been happening over the course of the entire journey. And again, none of these guys were rookies. So I can't imagine a scenario in which a slightly bigger one of these fireballs go off and they're all like, we should paddle into open ocean just to be safe. So that still leads into the mystery of what happened to the Mary Celeste. And I think I've been respectful and reverent enough of the dead that I can now say it was the Kraken. The Kraken definitely did it. I didn't mention this detail earlier because
I've been waiting to say not Kraken, but since I watched the H.P. Lovecraft thing, it was Cthulhu, right? All those sea creatures. That's what that was. It would make sense, right? We're talking about the sea, right? Yeah. And even the, like, in Pirates of the Caribbean, Davy Jones also has like tentacle H.P. Lovecraftian things, so it just matches. So yeah. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what the fuck happened. Only thing I can think of is just like pirates. Look, pirates came, couldn't board it because probably some other ship also came, with them, so they got spooked off. But at the same time, the people who were on board also ran away for some reason, and nobody touched the boat. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. Or they tried to run away and another pirate ship or pirate basically took hold of them, kidnapped them, and I don't know. Like, yeah, basically, once nefarious people take hold of you, like, you can disappear, let's just say. So I don't know, that makes sense. Like, pirate thing is the only thing makes sense. Only thing that against pirates is why didn't they take anything? Maybe they also run into something that they couldn't board and basically run away. But at the same time, they also left. The people who were going to leave also took the lifeboat and ran away before realizing that pirates also ran away. So it just like abandoned the ship, right? And I'm guessing that they were never found. So I guess they got crossed off with another pirates. That's the most believable thing to me. I don't know.
it was too dumb at the time. But one of the notes that the Attorney General said in his entire case is that the front of the ship there were several scratch marks. These weren't like enough to puncture into the boat or anything, but they were enough to be noticeable. The Attorney General's theory was that after the crew got drunk and murdered the entire family, they swam around to the front of the ship and cut it in order to make people think that it ran aground in the middle of the ocean. However, that's lame. Wouldn't it be a lot cooler if a kraken swam up there and it was latched onto the front and that's why the scratch marks are there? And then while everyone's on...
Well, kraken came and said, boo, everybody ran away and kraken just went back without doing any damage. No, I think the pirate boat might have scratched it up from the front. It looks like scratching.
On deck, it just starts grabbing people with these giant tentacles, and then a couple people try to get away by hopping on a lifeboat and cutting it real quick before they too get sucked underwater.
Oh, look, there's kraken there, big, like sea creature. Let's go into small lifeboat in the sea. Yeah. This is Pirates of the Caribbean all over again.
Water, or float out to sea and die of the elements, whichever's worse. And the best part about that theory is, you can't tell me I'm wrong, because cameras didn't exist yet, and neither did I. So we're moving on. I think one of the reasons that the Mary Celeste is such a well-known story...
See, the best thing about that is that it's not that I can't say it's wrong, I can say everyone's wrong. That's the thing. Nobody's right, everyone's wrong. Flip the shit, right? There's no camera, so everybody's wrong.
So infamous, too, among people like me who are absolutely terrified of the ocean, is because it kind of embodies a lot of the things that make me afraid of it in the first place. It is absolutely unexplainable, and your imagination is pretty much the deciding factor in whatever could have happened to these people. Because just like with the ocean itself, if we're taking a scenario that is so beyond our minds of anything that we can know or understand, then our deepest fear...
That's way too poetic or metaphorical way of saying. The simple thing is like we are not ocean people. We are not made for ocean. So we can control it. Like shit happens on the land, bodies and things can be found technically. Ocean, it will just sunk down the bottom of the ocean, it's gone, right? Ocean is not controllable. Ocean can be lawless. Pirates and shit like this. And people badly control the land they are on. How the fuck they're going to control ocean or patrol it in any way? So ocean can be dealt. Even today, international waters is very messed up thing, right? So yeah, even today we can't really okay, it's the international waters. Let's just So back then, I mean, come on, that's why it's scary because it's out of our hand.
might as well be the truth. And if you're thinking, well, that was in the 1800s and people just used to die back then, which, to be fair, people did just up and die for no reason back then, then allow me to turn your attention to the Cause 2. Cause, K's, I'm going to call it Cause, whatever. Now, the Cause 2 was admittedly shorter than the Mary Celeste, boasting a 32-foot span. However, it was still a yacht-class vessel and definitely capable of sailing in the ocean. On April 15th in 2007, a 3-man crew decided to go out on a recreation.
Hold on, why did I fucking miss that one?
However, it was still a yacht-class vessel and definitely capable of sailing in the ocean. On April 15th in 2007, a 3-man crew decided to go out on a recreational expedition aboard the Cause 2. They set out from Queensland, Australia, and from everything that I've read of the family members of the people who were on the boat, it seems that they were just going to spend a few days going from different docks and sailing about at sea. That was until on April 18th, a helicopter spotted the boat and noticed that there didn't seem to be anyone on it. After some reports and investigations, eventually on April 20th, the boat was found and boarded about 88 miles off the coast of Australia. And similar to the Mary Celeste, whenever
Australia. If it was like something like, let's say, some coast of Africa or something, I would have said like Somali pirates and things like that. You know that movie? Look at me. I'm the captain now. Shit like that. Australia, is there some things like that? I don't know. How strong is pirate activity around Australia? I don't know.
They got onto the boat, the entire crew was missing. Now, notably, the situation aboard the Cause 2 was noticeably more unnerving. There was food laid out on plates along with silverware, implying that everyone was just about to sit down to eat. The laptop was open and still on, implying that someone had just been using it. Even the engine was running. Everything pointed towards the idea of everyone simply just hiding as if the boat was being used only moments ago. Furthermore, all the life jackets were still hung up and none of them being used. The GPS was still working along with all distress functions that the boat had, although none of them had been activated. Even more so, on the front of the boat, the small life raft as well as the anchor were still tied up and not being used, meaning that it seemed no one tried to stop the boat or make an escape. The one thing that was amiss on the boat,
oh my god, 2007, with all the, like he said, GPS system, which is basically going to put a button out there and satellites will pick up like a distress signal. Nobody even did that. Like, doesn't matter how much hurry you are, you can basically do at least one push of a button. Oh shit, we have to like hurry, push the button. It's like one hope you have, like somebody might notice you. Nobody did that. Like, that's spooky thing, right? Like that, like in, back then, way long ago makes sense. But in today's world with the satellite and the distress signal, nobody even pushing that and everything is just like, like everything's just there, food is there, engine is running, that's spooky.
Is that one of the sails were very badly shredded, as if something had cut through them and torn them until they were useless. The police were able to use the GPS that was on the boat in order to backtrack the path that the Cause 2 took. And then on the GPS path, you can see the boat go out from port on the first day of their journey, slow down all at once, and then just start drifting until it was eventually found. As if the boat was just sailing out, and then for some reason, the engine went into neutral, and those 3 guys just disappeared off the face of the earth. Besides from the sail, the only one thing that, doesn't really count as a miss was the fact that the lure from the fishing pole was hooked into one of the side ropes off the side of the ship, which also paints another picture of what was happening when this all went down. They were out fishing, there was a pair of sunglasses found setting on one of the front chairs on the boat, and there was a coffee mug on the back deck just sitting on a table. Again, the whole picture implies that everyone was about to eat, they were out fishing, they were bathing.
It was an instant thing. It's Australia, right? Isn't there like tribes, Papua New Guinean tribes who's like untouched and it's just like cannibalized tribe there? How close is this to that? Maybe some of them might have been a makeshift boat and just basically took them or shit, or they just got close. I don't know. A tribe would make sense, like, because the ripped off sail could imply somebody just like big ass longbow type of thing, if should arrow to it, so it just got ripped and things like that. That would make sense to me. I don't know.
In the sun and then just disappeared. Now, unlike the Mary Celeste, this is a modern investigation, so there had to be a modern proceeding of how this all went out, because 3 people can't just disappear and then the government not do anything about it. So at the final investigation where they went into the whole story of what probably happened, the coroner's report, which it sounds weird for a coroner to give a report with no bodies, but I digress. In the coroner's report, for what he proposes might have happened, it sounds like a slapstick comedy. Like, his story was that one of the guys got his hook stuck on that rope on the side that I mentioned earlier, and when he bends down to pick it up, he just falls in the water, to which the second guy says, "Don't worry, buddy, I'll come get you," and he jumps off the boat, but he forgot to turn the engine off, so the third guy puts the engine in neutral, and then he undoes the sail, but the sail swings all the way around the boat and smacks him and throws him off the side. So his idea was, in the span of 30 seconds, all three of them were so incompetent that they managed to like Three Stooge their way into the ocean. But as far as official
Yeah, I mean, you know, just like fucking Olsen. Olsen's nothing. Why would I need training in sailing, right? They clearly had no training. This is like a movie Final Destination, all that shit happened. Like, really, man? Come on. They wouldn't take precautions. Come on. Who would go to fucking ocean, right, in the like international territory and not learn about this thing? But that doesn't make sense. It's like right now you're just making shit up. To me, still like tribal thing makes sense. I don't know like how close would like those cannibal like untouched tribes were, because they can be like, you know, like aggressive, right?
reports go, that's all that we got. But despite that, as well as large-scale searches along the coast of Australia, no evidence of them was ever found. And what's so shocking about this in particular is you imagine that someone who's taken every precaution between the GPS and the radio equipment and all of that would not have the capability to go missing in the modern world. However, that's exactly what happened. And this is a much more recent occurrence, and the families of those who were lost are still alive, so I am not going to make a joke that it was a kraken, so I'm just going to move on. And you may be listening to all this and thinking, well, that sounds pretty creepy. I guess I'll just stay on land where I'm safe. But see, that's how the ocean gets you. And to prove that there is no safety from the most disturbing thing on the entire planet, look no further than the Flannan Isles.
Wait, we're gonna talk about lighthouse. You know what? I'm gonna stop here. It's a half a video. I'll do the half a video tomorrow. This is very interesting. It's mysteries, right? It's very rarely I come across a video that's like good and it's about mysteries. Like Lamino. Lamino is the only one I can think of. So great, Wendigoon's doing that too. So it's gonna be interesting. You know, to me, like I said, like cannibal tribe thing makes sense with the latest one. The old one is like pirates, but they didn't board because they got spooked themselves by somebody else, right? I don't know, they probably saw a flag or, you know, some kind of like Spanish or British flag or some shit like that. I don't know, in the distance. They're like, fuck that, and just basically ran away, right? When the people were already on the lifeboat, right? So they basically tried to sail away and got encountered by another pirate or something who basically took them. Because I'm guessing there was never any mention of them, like they were never found, so that would make sense. The latest thing with the modern technology, I guess because it's so abrupt, like suddenly like happened, might be cannibalized tribe. I don't know. You would think like, okay, cannibal tribe don't take boats and go to the ocean, but how do you know, right? How you don't track them 24/7, right? You don't know what they do to survive. If it's close to something like those Papua New Guinea in some untouched tribe areas, because he said Australia, I don't know where in Australia. If that's something like that, then I don't know, right? Yeah. Well, that was the, let's say, first part of the most terrifying ocean mystery. There's still two left. The Flannan Isle Lighthouse, because lighthouse, yeah, it's definitely not going to be something ominous and spooky there. And the other thing is an unhinged rant about ocean monsters. Why I hate the ocean. I hate it so much, so that's just a rant. Alright, so I'm going to pick that up tomorrow. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I would know if I should do more Wendigoon video. Definitely comment down what I should do after this video, because Wendigoon is good. I definitely remember like the one video I've reacted to him. Like, I don't know if I finished that video or not because it was so long, but I don't know. I'll have to check it out. But yeah, comment down if you want to do more from this channel. And yeah, like I said, like and subscribe. That will help out the channel. And I'll see you next time.